Hello, I'm Dave Karger. Thanks for staying up late with me tonight on TCM. Up next, our star of the month, Sophia Loren, returns in her second Hollywood film. From United Artists in 1957, it's The Pride and the Passion. Set in 1810 during the Spanish rebellion against Napoleon's army, the film follows a group of Spanish peasants who attempt to drag a huge cannon more than 100 miles across land to fight for a city that's being held by the French. At the heart of the story is a conflict between the leader of the Spanish peasants and a British naval officer who's been tasked with bringing that cannon back to England. Adding to the tension between them, they both fall in love with the same woman, a beautiful Spanish freedom fighter played by Sophia Loren. The Pride and the Passion was based on a novel by C.S. Forester, who also chronicled the Napoleonic Wars in his popular series of books about the fictional British naval captain Horatio Hornblower. This adaptation was directed and produced by Stanley Kramer, and originally Kramer had Cary Grant in mind to play the British officer in the film, along with Marlon Brando as the leader of the Spanish rebels and Ava Gardner as his mistress. But Brando turned the part down, and Kramer offered it instead to Frank Sinatra. Sinatra was willing to accept, but that posed a problem for Ava Gardner. The two were married at the time, but they were estranged and didn't want to work together. Stanley Kramer then turned to Italian actress Gina Lollobrigida, but she was busy making the movie Trapeze. In the end, Italian producer Carlo Ponti intervened and suggested his protege, Sophia Loren. Loren was an established star in Italy, but this was only her second Hollywood film. To prepare for the role and her role in her first Hollywood film, Boy on a Dolphin, released earlier the same year, she had to learn how to speak English. Here she is, starring opposite Cary Grant and Frank Sinatra from 1957, The Pride and the Passion. The Pride and the Passion was directed and produced by Stanley Kramer, who had been producing movies in Hollywood for a decade, but had only directed one feature before this. Later, he would go on to earn Oscar nominations for directing and producing powerful, socially conscious films like The Defiant Ones, Judgment at Nuremberg, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. But at this point in his career, Kramer was still finding his footing. Looking back on the film in his memoir, he described it as disappointing and felt that his casting choices didn't quite work. He wrote, "Grant, Sinatra, and Loren were an unusual trio who seemed to promise dramatic sparks. Though they might have blended perfectly in a different kind of picture, they didn't here." Off-screen, on the other hand, dramatic sparks did fly between Cary Grant and Sophia Loren. Grant fell in love with Loren on the set of this film, and even though the romance didn't last long, they went on to star in one more movie after this, Houseboat, released a year later in 1958. Coming up, Sophia Loren stars opposite Paul Newman and David Niven in a 1965 comedy written and directed by Peter Ustinov.
Next on TCM, Lady L, then Abraham Lincoln, and later, rain. TCM's bracing for some precipitation tonight.